Hey, I'm the Wolfmaan, and I'm here today in beautiful Algonquin Provincial Park in Ontario, Canada. Now, this provincial park is one of Canada's largest and oldest. It was established in 1893 basically as a game preserve to make sure that they could try to undo all of the logging damage that was done here for a couple of hundred years by loggers. The park itself is 700,000 hectares. This is a really big park. Now, there are 14 individual hiking trails that can be accessed from what we call the Highway 60 corridor, and that's the major highway that runs from east to west along the park. Today we're going to head up the Lookout Trail. This trail is about 2 kilometers long, mostly uphill. We're going to start here down at the parking lot. We're going to follow our way up, but once we get to the top, the lookout is stunningly beautiful. So come on and join me. Let's see what we can find. This is known as the Pebble. Now, it may seem kind of silly to call this gigantic boulder, which is almost the size of a house, a pebble. But if you can believe it or not, this area, like most of the northern hemisphere, about 10 or 11,000 years ago, was covered in kilometers and kilometers of ice. This was part of the last ice age. 4 times in the last million years, the Earth has gone through rapid and massive climate change, and this whole area was once completely covered by kilometers of glacier, which would have gone right up to the sky. In that glacier would have been all kinds of stuff that the glacier had collected. This was one of that stuff that they collected. During the melt period, where all of this would have been huge torrents of massive water, cold, frigid waters, pulling away as the glaciers receded when things warmed up, this was deposited here. Looks kind of funny to see this gigantic boulder just sitting in this rocky area, but that's how it arrived here. It's been sitting here all by itself, attracting the wonderment of some of the indigenous peoples who lived here for thousands of years, for 11,000 years. Look at the size of this badass boulder. This thing is huge. When I see it perched up here on this little point, I can imagine myself as Indiana Jones if this boulder came loose, started chasing me down the trail. I'd have to start running just as it started coming up. And most of the rock that we see in the Algonquin Park area comes from glaciers, like that giant pebble that we saw before. But look at this rock. This piece of stone is not a glacial deposit. This was actually forged when the earth was put together here and pushed up from the earth's crust. So this rock, instead of coming down and being dropped down, traveling thousands of miles in ice, this came right out of the earth's surface. What a fascinating thing to see. The texture of the rock is also quite a bit different than anywhere else that we've seen in the park. So here we are at the lookout point in Algonquin Park, and behind me is some of the most beautiful and pristine scenery that I could ever imagine. The camera, certainly, no matter how much we try, will not be able to cover how beautiful this is. Imagine this in a couple of weeks when autumn finally hits. This whole valley will look like it's on fire from all the leaves turning red and ready to drop off. Now, there's a bit of a drop off behind me here. This big, huge, sheer chunk of smooth rock has probably got to drop off a couple of 100 meters below me. At this point, I'm at the highest point in Algonquin Park, which is 500 meters above sea level. And I can see Lake of Two Rivers. I can see a couple of lakes down there, not to mention that smell. Behind the camera is a huge grove of pine trees, and the air is so beautiful here. I'm just going to do a quick panoramic for you, and you can have a look at just how beautiful this area really is. If you can imagine that this area was once home to the Algonquin Indians, they used to wake up every morning and look out over the absolute pristine beauty that we see before us. I'd like to thank you for coming on this trip. If you have the opportunity to come and visit Algonquin Park, please certainly do so. I'm the Wolfman. Please consider subscribing. Thanks for watching.